Elon Musk just sent out a strange message on live TV. Mark my words. Either superintelligence will arise, or civilization will end. As algorithms and hardware advance, artificial intelligence will eventually outperform biological intellect by a significant margin, making it far more hazardous than nuclear weapons. It's clear, I'm quite near to the cutting edge in AI, which terrifies the living daylights out of me. Your doubts about AI are reflected in your worries about it. Sure, it's large. We just don't know what will happen only once, hence the phrase, singularity, is probably the most appropriate. There is intellect that is much more than what a human brain is capable of. Yeah. Hey, I am far more evolved than people think, and our rate of advancement is a lot faster than people think. Whoa, that's like, what's that if you saw a robot walking around talking and acting like a person? Yes, it is correct. Sizable server bank in a canine with intelligence. That has a much larger potential than what I hear does. Isaac would be everywhere if he could. Every network device, including every camera, microphone, and recording device. That's exactly what it was. It's not like a robot is running about, I mean. The robots would just be something humans see as an AI finger. The threat posed by AI is significantly bigger than the threat posed by a sealed nuclear weapon. None would advocate for allowing anyone to create nuclear warheads at will. That is ridiculous, of course. Furthermore, AI is much more dangerous than you might think. Far. Why then do we lack regulatory control? This is crazy. I worry about potential ways I could go in that wouldn't be good for the future. That's what I mean. I think it'd be fair to say that like not all AI futures of an eye. Not all okay. And so if you have something, if we create some digital superintelligence that exceeds us in every way by a lot, it's very important that people 9 it just becomes a very unstable situation, I think. If you've got any incredibly powerful, I just don't know who's going to control that. So, it's not, as I think that the risk is that the AI would develop a will of its own right off the bat. I think it's more. That's the concern. Is that someone may use it in a way that is bad and even if they weren't going to use in a way that's bad. But somebody could take it from them and use it in a way that's bad, that I think is quite a big danger. This could be huge problem. For society. One of the scenarios that scare you most humanity. Really is not evolved to think of external threats to general. We've evolved to think about things that are very close to us near term to be upset with other humans and not to really to think about things that could destroy humanity as a whole. But then in recent decades just really in last century we had nuclear bombs, where could potentially destroy civilization obviously. I would have which could destroy civilization. We have global warming, which could destroy civilization, or where these severely disrupt civilization. And I would be used to make incredibly effective propaganda that we're not seeing like what propagandist. These are depicts. Yeah, influence the direction of society, influence elections. Artificial intelligence, just hones the message check looks. The Pete looks at the feedback makes this message slightly better. Within milliseconds, it can adapt as message and shift and react to news. And there's so many social media accounts out there that are not people that can't how do you know it's supposed ton it over soon? People underestimate the cave bully capability of AI? They sort of think like it's a smart human but it's really much. It's going to be much more than that every much smarter than the smallest human very real. Every if cannot chimpanzee really understand humans not really we just seemed like strange aliens. Well, they're mostly just care about other chimpanzees and this will be how it is more or less in relative into impact. If the difference is only that small, that would be amazing. I hope we're traveling frequently throughout the solar system, perhaps preparing for missions to nearby star systems. I think all of this is possible within 50 years. And I think they'll be very exciting that. I think we'll see autonomy and artificial intelligence advance tremendously. That's actually quite near term. My guess is in probably 10 years. It will be very unusual for cars to be built that are not fully autonomous 10 years, Tennyson? Yeah, I think almost all cars built will be capable of full autonomy in about 10 years as it is the Tesla cars that are made today have the sensor system necessary for full autonomy and we think probably enough compute power to be safer than a person. So it's mostly just a question of developing the software and uploading software and if it turns out that the compute power at the more computer power is needed, we can easily upgrade the computer. And so that's all Tesla's built since October of last year, and other manufacturers will follow and do the same thing. So, getting in a car will be like getting in an elevator. You just tell it where you want to go and it takes you there with extreme levels of safety, and that'll be normal. I'll just be normal for elevators that used to be elevator operators. You get in, they be guy moving a lever. Now, I just getting you press the button and that's taken for granted. Well, I mean, I do think it's possible to create something very exciting in electric aircraft. And I think there's probably going to be a lot that happens in genetics and in human-machine brighten your face, like essentially a cyborg brain interface. I think there's some pretty singularity, well, that's sort of or relating to deep AI is something I think we should be concerned about is that may or may not turn out. Well, yeah, I think it's the singularity is probably the right word, because we just don't know what's going to happen once there's intelligence substantially greater than that of a human brain. And most of the movies and TV featuring AI, I don't describe it in quite the way it's likely to actually take place, but I think you just have to consider, like, even in the benign scenario where AI, if AI is much smarter than a person, what do we do? Yeah. What is that? What job do I have? I think the thing that drives me is that I want to be able to think about the future, and you feel good about that. So that, we're doing what we can to have a future be as good as possible, to be inspired by what is likely to happen and to look forward to the next day. So that's what really drives me is trying to figure out how do we make sure that things are great. I'm going to be so, and that's the underlying principle behind Tesla and SpaceX, is that I think it's pretty important that we accelerate the transition to sustainable generation and consumption of energy. It's inevitable, but it matters. If it happens sooner or later, and then SpaceX is about helping make life multiplanetary and doing what we can to continue the dream of Apollo and ultimately make contribution to life becoming multiplanetary. But people who will have to make a decision to what degree are we willing to sacrifice the future for the present. Yeah. I predict a very challenging future for all of us. Fundamentally, I believe we have a problem with delayed gratification. As a species as a whole, like all we willing to whether to forego the short term in favor of the long term. We will eventually be forced to switch to a sustainable energy system, since there won't be any more hydrocarbons available to mine and burn. We must therefore move toward a solar-powered future sooner rather than later. Better for the long term. But if we leave sooner rather than later, I'm fairly convinced that solar power will be the main source of electricity for humanity in the future.